Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Storyriem. I'm truly glad you're here today. So get comfortable, take a slow, deep breath, and let yourself relax. For the next few minutes, we're going to travel back in time to meet a little girl whose life would change the course of history. Now picture this: a little girl, only 10 years old, lives in a magnificent palace. From the outside, it looks like a dream. Grand halls, elegant rooms, beautiful gardens, and royal luxury everywhere. But behind those palace walls, life feels nothing like a fairy tale. To her, the palace is not a home, it's a prison. She is never allowed to be by herself. She can't even walk downstairs unless someone is holding her hand. She has no friends her own age to laugh or play with. Every part of her day is controlled. The adults around her decide what she should eat, what she should wear, where she should go, and even what she should think. She spends most of her childhood feeling lonely, frightened, and completely isolated. Yet, hidden inside this quiet, unhappy little girl is a destiny no one can escape. One day she will wear the crown of Great Britain. She will rule over the largest empire the world has ever known. Her name will become so influential that an entire period of history will forever be known by it. Her name was Queen Victoria, and today, this is her extraordinary story. Stay with me, because this isn't just the story of a queen. It's the story of courage, resilience, heartbreak, and what happens when unimaginable responsibility is placed on the shoulders of a child. Our journey begins in the year 1819. On the 24th of May, inside Kensington Palace in London, a baby girl entered the world. She was given the name Alexandrina Victoria. Her father was the Duke of Kent, one of the sons of King George III of England. Her mother was a German princess named Victoria of Saxe-Coburg. Victoria's father adored his little daughter. He was cheerful, warm-hearted, and incredibly proud of her. He lovingly called her his little princess and dreamed of watching her grow up. But fate had other plans. When Victoria was only 8 months old, her father caught what seemed like an ordinary cold. Within a short time, that cold developed into a serious illness, and he passed away. In a single moment, everything changed. Victoria would grow up with no memory of her father. She would never hear his voice, feel his embrace, or know the comfort of having him by her side. Instead, she would spend her childhood inside a palace filled with rules, silence, and constant supervision. Her mother suddenly found herself alone in a foreign country with an infant daughter. She spoke very little English, had limited financial support, and the family was drowning in debt. Every day brought uncertainty, fear, and anxiety about what the future might hold. And it was during this vulnerable time that a man named John Conroy entered their lives. Conroy was an ambitious officer in the royal household, intelligent, calculating, and hungry for influence. He quickly realized something important. If young Victoria ever became Queen of England, whoever controlled Victoria would hold enormous power over the kingdom. Determined to secure that power, Conroy and Victoria's mother created an incredibly strict method of raising the young princess. Today, historians know it as the Kensington system. Its purpose was simple, but deeply cruel: to make Victoria completely dependent on them. She was never left alone, not for a single minute, day or night. She shared a bedroom with her mother until the day she became queen. She couldn't walk downstairs without someone holding her hand. She couldn't meet visitors unless her mother was sitting beside her. Every book she read had to be approved beforehand. She wasn't allowed to play freely with children her own age unless someone closely watched every moment. Meals were quiet. Conversation was limited. She was expected to sit perfectly still, speak softly, and obey without question. The palace was filled with people, yet she had almost no freedom. To cope with the loneliness, Victoria began writing in a diary. If you read those early pages today, you can almost hear the sadness hidden between the lines. She wrote about her lessons, the weather, and the ordinary events of each day. But beneath those careful words was a little girl desperately wishing for something every child deserves: a true friend, a little freedom, and someone who would simply love her for who she was, not for the queen she might one day become. Her closest companion wasn't another child. It was a small spaniel named Dash. Victoria adored him. She dressed him in tiny jackets, played with him for hours, and found comfort in his loyal company. In a palace where so many people wanted something from her, Dash wanted only one thing: to be close to her. Just think about that for a moment. A princess surrounded by wealth, yet longing for something money could never buy: freedom. Despite everything, Victoria was remarkably intelligent. She was determined, strong-willed, and when necessary, incredibly stubborn. As she grew older, she slowly began to understand exactly what John Conroy was doing. He wasn't protecting her. He was trying to control her. Before she became queen, Conroy repeatedly pressured Victoria to sign a document that would make him her official advisor once she took the throne. Again and again, she refused. Even when she was sick, even when she was exhausted, even when they pressured her for hours, she simply would not give in. That kind of courage is extraordinary. Remember, she wasn't an experienced ruler. She was just a teenager. She had very few people she could truly trust. Yet somehow she found the strength to stand her ground. Then came the morning that changed everything. On the 20th of June, 1837, King William IV died. The crown now belonged to Victoria. She was only 18 years old. Early that morning, history quietly knocked on the door of Kensington Palace. The Archbishop of Canterbury and the Lord Chamberlain arrived with news that would change the course of Britain's future forever. They gently woke the young princess and told her something almost impossible to believe. King William IV had died. At just 18 years old, Victoria was now the Queen of England. According to tradition, Victoria came downstairs wearing nothing more than her simple nightgown, her hair still loose from sleep. She was tiny, standing only about 150 centimeters tall. To anyone who saw her, she looked more like a nervous young girl than the ruler of a great nation. Yet the way she carried herself surprised everyone. She stood calm, composed, and remarkably dignified, accepting the enormous responsibility that had suddenly fallen upon her shoulders. Almost immediately, she made a decision that spoke louder than any royal proclamation. She asked for her bed to be moved out of her mother's bedroom. For the first time in 18 years, she would sleep alone. Then came another bold decision. She ordered that John Conroy was never to come near her again. With those simple commands, the Kensington system, the controlling world that had shaped her entire childhood, came to an end. Just imagine that moment. 18 long years of being watched, 18 years of being controlled, 18 years of living someone else's life. And with only a few quiet words, she finally claimed her own. The following year, in June 1838, Victoria's coronation took place at the magnificent Westminster Abbey, one of England's oldest and most breathtaking churches. London came alive with celebration. Thousands upon thousands of people crowded the streets just to catch a glimpse of their young queen. She rode through the city in a magnificent golden carriage as cheering crowds waved and church bells echoed across the country. She was only 19 years old, but behind the celebration, many people were filled with doubt. Victoria was young. She had little experience, and she was stepping into a world almost entirely controlled by powerful men. The government watched her. The royal court watched her. The empire watched her. Many expected her to fail. Others believed she would become nothing more than a puppet, just as John Conroy had hoped. They couldn't have been more wrong. What they didn't understand was that Victoria's difficult childhood had become her greatest strength. Years of loneliness had taught her resilience. Years of control had taught her independence. Years of silence had taught her patience. She was far stronger than anyone imagined. During her first years on the throne, one person became her greatest source of guidance and support: Prime Minister Lord Melbourne. He was much older than Victoria, with kind eyes, silver hair, and an endless supply of patience. More than a political advisor, he became the father figure she had never known. Every day they spent hours together discussing politics, government, diplomacy, and the enormous responsibilities of ruling an empire. Slowly, he helped transform an uncertain teenager into a confident monarch. For the first time in her life, Victoria truly trusted someone. And perhaps, for the very first time, she felt emotionally safe. But fate still had another surprise waiting for her. One that would change not only her reign, but also her heart. In 1839, a young German prince arrived at the English court. His name was Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. He also happened to be Victoria's cousin. They had met years earlier, but only briefly. This time was different. Albert had grown into an intelligent, handsome, and thoughtful young man. He was quiet by nature, deeply curious, and passionate about music, science, art, and philosophy. He could play both the piano and the organ beautifully. Everything about him fascinated Victoria. From the moment she saw him again, she knew something had changed. She had fallen in love. There was, however, one unusual royal tradition. Because Victoria was the reigning queen, Albert could not ask her to marry him. The proposal had to come from her. And so, on the 15th of October, 1839, Victoria invited Albert into a private room. With honesty, courage, and no hesitation, she asked him to marry her. Albert happily accepted. Later, Victoria wrote in her diary that it was the happiest day of her life. The couple married in February 1840, beginning one of history's most admired royal marriages. Victoria's wedding created a tradition that still exists today. Instead of wearing brightly colored royal clothing, she chose a simple white wedding dress. Before that day, brides wore dresses of every imaginable color. After Victoria's wedding, white became the symbol of a bride, a tradition that continues across much of the world even today. Their marriage was built on genuine love and deep respect. Victoria adored Albert. She wrote about him constantly in her diary, calling him her angel and describing him as the most perfect man she had ever known. Albert was much more than a husband. He was her closest friend, her greatest advisor, her partner in every sense of the word. Together they raised 9 children, 4 sons and 5 daughters, while building a strong and loving family. Albert also played an important role in shaping modern Britain. He believed deeply in education, scientific discovery, technological innovation, and improving the lives of ordinary people. His greatest achievement came in 1851. He organized the Great Exhibition, one of the most extraordinary events the world had ever seen. The exhibition was held inside the breathtaking Crystal Palace, a gigantic structure made almost entirely of glass and iron. Sunlight poured through its transparent walls, making the entire building sparkle like a palace made of crystal. People traveled from every corner of the globe to witness incredible inventions, remarkable machines, beautiful works of art, and groundbreaking discoveries. It was more than an exhibition. It was a celebration of human creativity, innovation, and progress. And above all, it was Prince Albert's remarkable vision brought to life. People traveled from every corner of the world to experience the Great Exhibition. They came to see incredible inventions, revolutionary machines, breathtaking works of art, and remarkable innovations from dozens of different countries. More than 6 million people walked through the doors of the Crystal Palace, making it one of the greatest events of the 19th century. It wasn't just an exhibition. It was a celebration of human imagination, creativity, and progress. And at the heart of it all was Prince Albert's extraordinary vision. As the years passed, the British Empire continued to expand at an astonishing pace. Its influence stretched across Africa, Asia, the Pacific, and beyond. At its height, the empire covered nearly 1/4 of the Earth's land, and more than 400 million people lived under Queen Victoria's rule. People often said, "The sun never sets on the British Empire." It wasn't just a saying. It was true. The empire had become so vast that somewhere within its borders, the sun was always shining. And standing at the center of this enormous empire was Queen Victoria. The frightened little girl who had once lived as a prisoner inside Kensington Palace had become one of the most powerful women the world had ever known. Her influence became so great that her name outlived her. It became an era, the Victorian era. Even today, when we hear the word Victorian, we instantly think of railways, factories, grand cities, strict manners, scientific discoveries, and a world transforming into the modern age. Very few people in history have had a name so powerful that it came to define an entire period of time. That alone is extraordinary. But history has a way of reminding us that even the greatest lives are touched by sorrow. On the 14th of December, 1861, tragedy struck. Prince Albert died at just 42 years of age. Doctors believed the cause was typhoid fever, a deadly disease often spread through contaminated water. Victoria never left his side. She held his hand until his final breath. And when he was gone, her world fell apart. She wasn't simply mourning a husband. She had lost her closest friend, her greatest advisor, her constant companion, the one person who understood her better than anyone else ever could. The grief was overwhelming. It consumed her. She cried endlessly, unable to imagine life without him. From that day forward, she wore black for the rest of her life. Not for a year, not for a decade. For 40 years, every single day. She refused to let Albert disappear from her life. His bedroom remained exactly as he had left it. His clothes were carefully laid out every morning. Fresh hot water was brought to his wash basin each day, as though he might return at any moment. Nothing was allowed to change. Slowly, Victoria withdrew from the world. She stopped attending ceremonies. She avoided public appearances. She remained hidden inside her palaces, surrounded by portraits, photographs, and memories of Albert. The people who had once admired their young queen began to lose patience. They gave her a new name, the Widow of Windsor. Some even questioned whether Britain still needed a monarchy if its queen rarely appeared in public. Years passed, 5 years, 10 years. Still, the grief remained. But little by little, Victoria found the strength to continue. She realized something every one of us eventually learns. Life doesn't stop because our hearts are broken. Responsibility doesn't disappear because we're grieving. The crown cannot wait. So Victoria returned. She stepped back into public life. She met with prime ministers. She studied government documents. She made decisions that affected millions of people across the empire. Day after day, year after year, she carried on. Then, in 1876, another responsibility was placed upon her shoulders. She was officially declared Empress of India. India was known as the jewel of the British Empire, home to hundreds of millions of people. Although Victoria never visited India herself, she became deeply fascinated by its culture and traditions. She even learned a little Hindi. She welcomed an Indian man named Abdul Karim into her household. What began as a formal appointment soon grew into a genuine friendship. Karim became both her teacher and a trusted companion during the later years of her life. As time passed, Victoria's family continued to grow. She became the grandmother of 42 grandchildren. Many of them married into royal families across Europe. Before long, kings, queens, princes and princesses from Germany, Russia, Spain, Norway, Sweden, and several other nations were all connected through Queen Victoria. People began calling her the grandmother of Europe. By the end of her life, very few royal families on the continent were untouched by her family tree. Finally, on the 22nd of January, 1901, Queen Victoria passed away. She was 81 years old. She had ruled Britain for 63 years, longer than any British monarch before her. The world she left behind looked nothing like the one she had entered as a baby. During her lifetime, humanity had witnessed the arrival of railways, the telegraph, photography, the telephone, electric lighting, and even the first automobiles. She had watched Britain transform from a powerful island kingdom into the largest empire the world had ever seen. When news of her death spread, millions mourned. Crowds filled the streets of London to pay their final respects. For most people alive at that time, there had never been another monarch. Entire generations had been born, grown old, and passed away during her reign. And when you think about it, it all began with one lonely little girl who wasn't even allowed to walk down the stairs by herself. That's what makes Victoria's story so unforgettable. She didn't begin as the strongest person in the room. She became that person. She carried the weight of the crown for 63 remarkable years. Sometimes that crown brought honor. Sometimes it brought unimaginable pain. It gave her the love of her life, and then it took him away. Yet she never laid it down. She carried it through loneliness, through heartbreak, through doubt, through responsibility, and through constant change. Now let me ask you something. What crown are you carrying today? Maybe it's learning a new language. Maybe it's chasing a dream. Maybe it's overcoming fear, failure, or self-doubt. Whatever it is, don't give up. Some days your crown will feel heavy. Some days you'll wonder whether it's worth continuing. But every new word you learn, every challenge you overcome, every small step forward, makes that crown a little lighter and a little more your own. Queen Victoria proved that even the smallest person can carry the heaviest crown, and so can you. Keep believing, keep learning, keep moving forward. Thank you for spending this time with me here on Storyriem. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which part of Queen Victoria's life touched you the most? Was it her lonely childhood? Her beautiful love story with Prince Albert? Or the incredible strength she showed after losing him? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one of them, and I truly enjoy hearing your perspective. Until we meet again for another journey through history, take good care of yourself, keep your curiosity alive, and never stop learning.